Hi, this is David from Fumastra, and in today's video we are going to create one formula that contains multiple functions to evaluate a certain number and return from which provider it is. We have in Uganda different providers like MTN, Africell, Airtel, Uganda Telecom, and they have different numbers. At least we know that from the first 3 digits, or more especially the third digit, we can identify the service provider for that number. If at the third position we have a 7 or a 8, then we know that we have MTN. If we have either a 5, either 0, and the third position, we know that it is Airtel. And if it is a 9, it is Africell. If it is 1, it is Uganda Telecom. So we can start with those that have only one number. So like, we want first to use the left function to extract the first 3 characters from the left. So then we will use an OR function to evaluate whether it is 5 or 0, or it is 7 or 8. And then with the if function, we will return if it is MTN or any other. So we are going to use the 3 functions to create a unique formula that will return the right service provider for those telephone numbers. So if we start with the simplest one at the bottom, this one that we know it is Uganda Telecom, we want to extract the first left character. So the left function takes in 2 arguments. The first one is the text from which we want to extract a certain number of characters, and the number of characters that we want to extract from that text is, in this case, 3. We obtain 071, and that result we can compare it to that result to 071. So we can compare it with the equal sign to 071, and if that is correct, so we can select that argument within the formula, hit F9 and obtain the result which is true. So if that is true, then we obtain the information that we want. So we have the left function in evaluation, and because it is returning true, if we place the if function, and at the end of the if function, the second argument should be Uganda Telecom. Okay. So we have a very first embedded function left with an evaluation to 071 within that if function. That's the first logical test and the first argument of the if function. Now we press enter, and if the first 3 characters correspond to 071, we obtain Uganda Telecom. Now we could do the same for this one, but we don't especially want that. We want to create one formula that will evaluate all those numbers at once. So we are going back inside our formula, and if it is not equal to 071, then we want to create the last evaluation value if false. If that is false, then the function if jumps the value if true, doesn't consider it, and goes directly to value if false. If the value if false, then we can have another if function embedded inside to create another evaluation. So if it is not 071, then if what we have from the left, again, we are going to copy that and paste it inside there. So, and we compare it with 079. Okay. So we are within the second if function that lives within the first if function. Within that if function, we have a first evaluation that compares the first 3 characters from the phone number, the left 3 characters, to 079. And if we obtain that true, so if that is true, then we should return Africell. Otherwise, for now, let's say that for now we don't want anything else for now. So we close the first bracket corresponding to the inner if function, and then we have the last bracket for the outer function, and I hit enter. Now if I copy that up, we will obtain Africell, because now it's comparing what's on the left and extracting the first 3 characters from the left of that text, comparing it to 071, because this returns false, but it goes to the third argument of the if function, and we now evaluate to 079. We now evaluate to 079, which returns true, so it will return Africell. Okay, so now we have it. Now, what if it's not Uganda Telecom and not Africell? So we have, we need to go within the inner if function, and at the end of the inner if function we can place a comma, and we are going to work on the third argument of that inner if function, which will be evaluated if the logical test is evaluated to false. And if that is evaluated to false, we can again do another if evaluation. So we start the if, open the bracket. The third if function is going to evaluate to or 075 or 070. So we have again the same evaluation left to a certain number. Okay, let's see that we bring that to a new line. To create a new line within the function, we need to use the Alt Enter. Now we place that to a new line as well, Alt Enter. So our third if function is going to evaluate the 3 left character of our number to 070. And if that is true, it should return Airtel. So Airtel. And we close the bracket. So now we have 3 if function. We need to close the bracket 3 times. This one is for this if function. Then we have the second bracket, which is for the second if function. And then the very first if function. So we have the closing bracket for that one as well. Okay, so let's validate with that. And let's copy it upward as well. So now we have Uganda Telecom, Africell and Airtel for 070, which are covered. Now we need to also make sure that the other one are covered as well. And for that, we are going to go back in our function. We are going to, we have our first argument of the last if function, the most inner if function. We have the second argument of that third if function, and we are missing the last third argument of that inner if function, which should be evaluated if it is not 070. So the first evaluation is if it is equal to 0701. If that is not the case, we are jumping directly to the value if false, which is this entire argument, which is composed of two if functions. So if it is not 071, then we are going to start the second if function. And within that function, we check if it is equal to 070, 079. If that's the case, it is a free cell. If that is not the case, we are moving on to the third argument of the second if function. Here, what's highlighted is part of the second if function, which corresponds to the value that should be evaluated or returned if we obtain a false result in the first evaluation of the if function. So now we have already placed a comma within that third if function, and we want to further evaluate it to return MTN in that case. And I will get back to that in a moment. So if it is not Uganda Telecom, if it is not Africell, if it is not Airtel, then we are left with MTN. The problem is that we have also 075, which is part of Airtel, right? So we need to consider that as well. First, we can validate and we copy it upward. So now we have only one number which is not correct, which is not corresponding to MTN. It should be Airtel, and we are going to fix that right now. So with that, we need to evaluate the phone number, or the first three characters of the phone number, 2 or 070 or 075. So we need to copy that. Now we place just after the opening bracket of the most inner if function, we place an OR function that will have two logical tests. The first one being either equal to 070, either equal to 075. Okay. So we are within the OR function represent the first argument logical test of the if function, the most inner if function, the one that lives within the second if function, in which we are evaluating the first three characters of the phone number to either 070, either 075. If one of those true returns true, if one of those logical tests return true, then we are going to identify that number as Airtel. And at the end, well, if all tests have not succeeded, if all tests have returned false, in that case, okay, 078 is not equal to 071, it's not equal to 079, it's not equal to 070 or 075, so we have no other choice, it should be MTN. Okay, so that's the third argument of the third if function. Now we can validate that, enter, and we copy it up to all the other function. And now we have the right result that we want. The first two numbers belong to MTN, the other two belong to Airtel, Africell, and Uganda Telecom. So we have created our embedded functions that contains a left function to extract the first three characters of a text, comparing it to a certain number and returning a certain value with the if function. Then we have embedded another if function to further evaluate the number, and then another if function within the if function that lives within an if function. The third if function contains an OR function that contains two evaluations with a left function. And depending on the result that we obtain, we are going to either return RTL or finally at the end MTN. So that's it for this video, in which we have created a relatively complex formula that contains several functions, left function, OR function, and if function, several if function 3. Alright, thank you very much for watching. If you are interested to watch other video, please like that video and post any comment or suggestion in the section below the video. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.